I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
All right, all right, all right, all right. All my garden enthusiasts and passionate plant people, it's time for the Let's Get Growing show right here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host today, and we've got a great show for you ahead today. We are continuing on with our Arbor Day themed weekend. We're talking about trees. And today we've got a roundtable for you with our sponsor, Ivy Organic. Charles Malky will be joining with us here a little bit later today, along with Tom Spellman. These guys are joining back up with us again this year to talk again about tree care. So we got Tom Spellman from Dave Wilson Nursery with us, and we're going to have a great conversation about fruit trees. And then here in just a minute too, I've got a little I guess you would call it maybe a little special in the garden segment for you as well too, because we're going to go and take a look around at my fruit trees. I've got some container fruit trees around here, around my spaces here. So we'll take a look at those. I've got a few of those there. And then, yeah, again, too, great guests here today on the show. So if you are joining with us here right now, definitely, you know the deal, you know the drill. Let's hit that thumbs up, click that like button, as well as hit the subscribe and that bell notification too, because the bell notification will notify you of all of our upcoming videos and live streams. And again too, we've got more videos coming up. I've got another garden journal coming up this next week, as well as another video in our pepper growing series that I'm putting out this year, taking you guys all along with my whole pepper process of growing peppers, from indoors to growing them outdoors. We're getting back up on the rooftop this year. So we've got a lot of really cool, fun things to go along with our pepper series this year. So you'll want to catch up with all of those shows. And a good way to do that is, again, to hit that bell notification so you be notified of all of those videos as they're coming out here. Again, share with your friends too. Definitely don't keep this show a secret. We want the word out there. Let's make sure we're getting the word out there and letting everybody know that every Saturday and Sunday, every Saturday, there we go, every Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Urban Gardener channel, we've got our Let's Get Growing show. And make sure you let all of your garden friends know about our show and all of these just amazing guests that we get here each and every weekend to have just some wonderful, awesome, fun, educational, all sorts of those adjectives, just some really great gardening discussions here on the Urban Gardener channel and the Let's Get Growing show. So definitely let everybody know about that too. Also, big, huge shout out to you who are watching us on the replay. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here with us on the show. When you get a chance to catch up with us here and listen to some of these really great conversations, like I said, we got some amazing guests here on this show, and it's great to see all of you here on your time. Jump into the comments section below and let me know you're here. Let me know what you got growing on. Let me know if you got any questions, suggestions for any possible future guests that you might like to see on the show. If you're a smaller channel and you're out there growing and sharing and doing all of that as well too, jump into the comments, because I'd like to hear from you as well too. Maybe we might be able to have you featured on one of our Saturday shows or something here coming up as well too. We're gonna be doing a community show again too. I was talking about this on yesterday's show as well too, so I'm trying to plan out and get that set. I will make sure we have that all set up for sure, and I'll let you guys all know coming up this next weekend too, because it'll probably be the weekend after. And then again, to a lot of you who have the channels and all of that can jump on and talk about your channels or talk about your gardens. If you're just here viewing and watching and enjoying the conversations, this is your opportunity to be a part of the show. I mean, we've done this now a couple of times. It's really, really fun. It's and again, to many have done this now so far. So anybody who might think that they being apprehensive is what I'm trying to say. There's some folks who are kind of apprehensive about jumping on here with us live, but don't worry about it. It's been going really, really fun. So again, I'll let you all know about that this next weekend, about doing another community show where we can again, like one of those old school call-in radio shows. You call in and get on there and talk about whatever. We're talking gardening and all of that, but you can jump on here live with us as well too. Again, it's really great to be able to see all of you viewers on the show here, and an opportunity to be able to join in on the conversation like you get to do all the time. So right on. And like I say, if you have any questions too, again, we're talking about joining in on the conversation. If you're here with us live, definitely drop in all your questions in with the chat there as well too, when our guests come on the show here in just a little bit too. Lots and lots of questions. We've got plenty of questions for our discussion, but jump in with your questions too, and we'll try to get those featured into the conversation as well too. Put them in big capital letters, because you guys always have such a great conversation going on in the chat while we're also having our interview and discussion. And if you put them in big, bold capital letters, then I can see the questions so much better from the conversation. And that way I can make sure I pull them out and get them asked at the appropriate time in the discussion too. So again, questions, big, bold capital letters. Thank you very much. Awesome. Right on, everybody. Also, one last thing. Follow all the descriptions down below. We got our guest links right down in the description. Make sure you're following all of our guest links. Go to their YouTube pages, their social media, whatever links we got. Go to those sites that they got there. Go jump on one of their latest videos or posts or something like that. Go leave them a comment and let them know that you saw them here on the Let's Get Growing show. That's always awesome to see you guys do that and hear back from guests that you guys have jumped on and showed some support for them being on the show and the show itself too. It's a good way to support the show. So again, I appreciate all of you for taking that extra time to go do that. And again too, lots and lots of support. We're here building community in the garden community, and that's what our show is all about. So definitely, like I said, follow all those links and go check out all of what our guests have growing on as well too, because they're sharing lots of amazing things on their socials and YouTubes and all of that as well too. So again, thank you for doing that. All right, everybody. Again, we got lots and lots of things going on. We've been talking about this all month. This is the last chance we get to mention and talk about it at all, but it is National Garden Month. April is National Garden Month, and we kind of are celebrating National Garden Month here on the Let's Get Growing show by doing something, setting kind of a personal mission as it's been mine, as we've talked about over the previous weekends here in the month, is that we all celebrate Garden Month every month. We're gardeners. Most of all of us who are watching and who are watching a gardening discussion on our show here, we're really into gardening. We're garden enthusiasts, as I like to say. So we're celebrating it every month. But what we could do in a way to kind of really make National Garden Month, World Garden Month, whatever, for April meaningful, is to go out there and encourage others in your community to maybe start a garden of their own. And this is something I've kind of set on my own. I'm working on it, and it doesn't have to be in the month of April. Like I said, we only got a couple of days left, and if you're just catching this now, it doesn't matter. We can make a plan. We can do this throughout the gardening season, but let's make that our mission as real garden enthusiasts to help build the gardening community by bringing in some new gardeners if we can this year. And a very easy way to do that is just to go around friends, family members, other neighbors around your community. I'm going to go and kind of maybe reintroduce myself to some neighbors who've known me for years because I've been here for a long time. But maybe go introduce myself to some new neighbors as well that have moved in the last couple of years or so. And I'm going to go and gather up some seeds that I collect from the garden each year and make a couple of few seed packets or whatever. And then I'm going to just go and introduce myself, offer them some seeds, and then I'm going to invite them over. And one of the things I'm kind of lucky about too, because my garden's not really tucked away in my backyard or anything, I've got a very kind of public facing garden too. So it's very easy for people to just kind of come over, wander over and check it out if they want to. But even if you do have more of a backyard or anything, invite them over at some point in time where you can meet up and show them your garden space. Show them, and kind of show them too, really kind of, how easy gardening really is. It's not as complicated as it can be for a lot of people who haven't started gardening. We get, for me too, I started out that way. I thought gardening would be a lot more complicated than it ended up being. So if we can help kind of show people along and bring them along as far as that goes, we can create new gardeners this year and help them start their own gardens and all of that and be able to share in all of our garden fun, not just with, a lot of us each, share a lot, online and have a lot of these great online shows and channels and different social media, as I was mentioning before. And we're connecting a lot through a lot of that stuff. But it really is important as gardeners too, if you really, really want to be a successful gardener, is to have a good localized community of gardeners, garden clubs, those sort of things. It's to where you can really get together and talk with people, especially those who've gardened for years and have lots of great gardening experience locally to you, and being able to build that community around you locally so that people can really succeed at gardening that way, because that's your best gardening advice, is those gardeners who are gardening right there where you're gardening and growing all of the great things that you want to be able to grow in your garden. So being able to make those connections, bring people into that to help them succeed, all of that sort of stuff is a great purpose for us gardeners and a great way to celebrate National Gardening Month and take it into the rest of the season for all of us gardeners out there. So that's my advice on that. I think that's a really, really great idea. Again, as you'll see kind of here in the clips coming up here, as I put this on in the garden segment on here in just a minute too, showing you my container trees and everything I mentioned too. My garden's really kind of, we're in kind of like a resetting kind of thing. I've got a lot of stuff going on, but there's also not too much growing on at the moment too. If we really went out there and looked around, I'd probably be able to show you plenty. But in my mind, there isn't very much growing on. I want to get a lot of things really going good and all of that, and then get some friends and some people over and invite them over to check out all the garden space and show them how cool it is to grow your own food. As I was talking to our guest just a little bit earlier before we started this show, it's just so empowering to be able to grow your own food. And when you discover that and you're able to do that, it's just, it changes kind of your perspective on a lot of things. I think ultimately when it comes down to it is to be able to do something, so essential as being able to grow our own food. How empowering is that ultimately? So again, the more we can share that with others, the better the whole world is going to be, really, ultimately. And it can all start right with all of us gardeners too. So again, like I said, lots and lots growing on in the garden as far as getting things ready and getting things set up. I've got lots and lots of starts. If you saw yesterday's show, I started it out with a little clip of all of my little tomato starts that are popping up right now. So we got tons and tons of varieties of cool tomatoes. There's some eggplants that are coming up. We've got all of our peppers. If you're watching along with our pepper growing series that I mentioned just a little bit ago, that we've got our peppers are moving along just nicely. Everything's looking great, and we're approaching our last frost date here in another week or two here in the southern Oregon area. So for me, that's going to be, like I said, this is the time that we really start to fill in those spaces and get that garden really producing now. And as I've been kind of working and getting things ready for a lot of these different spaces and a lot of these different starts to be able to take up some room in those spaces too. I'm really, really excited about seeing the garden really filled up, especially with a lot of these different tomatoes and cool tomato varieties that we're going to get growing this year too as well. So again, lots growing on. And I hope you've got a lot growing on in your garden as well too. Let's just jump in and say hi here real quick to everybody. Let's see here. Of course, we got to start off by saying hi to our good friend Jay Dixon joining us from Midwestern Ontario, Canada. Our facilitator, Jay, joining us in the chat. Be sure to keep an eye out for links and all of that in the chat. There's Jay will be sharing different links throughout the conversation, and follow those links for more information. Or also, too, if you do have a channel or anything like that, we like to do channel shout outs. Definitely mention that you have a channel in the chat as well. And I'm sure Jay will get a link to your channel in there for you as well, too. So we can all show some support here for all of you channels out there here on the Let's Get Growing show. So again, thanks, Jay, for being here. Thanks for sharing and doing all of that for us in the chat. We've got Amanda. Thanks for joining with us, Amanda. It's great to have you here today, joining us from Southern California, currently growing some fruit trees, citrus, guava, mango, stone fruit, starting my vertical herb garden too. Now that sounds like a great project. Right on, right on. So you're here for this is gonna be a great show for you, as we're going to talk all about these sort of trees too as well. So that's great. Thanks for being here, Amanda. Great to have you here. Shawnee, great to see you again, joining us from Minnesota, preparing for some storms. You got storms about to happen over there. We're about to like move into some nice weather over here finally. It's been kind of rainy and gray and for a little while here too. So hopefully the storms don't last too long and you can get back into the garden real soon too. Excellent, everybody. Thanks for joining with us here. I see Serena in there. She says she got her leaf pile started. With all the rain, we have gotten over 6 inches with more on the way. So getting lots of rain. Worms are coming out and helping work the compost faster. That's awesome. Excellent. Great to have you, Serena. Thanks for joining with us here. We got Edible Solutions. Hi, it's great to have you. Thank you for being here. Great to see you here in the chat. Awesome. And of course, I see Charles has jumped in the chat already as well too. Excellent. They'll be on here in just a little bit here to get this tree care and backyard orchard culture conversation started here in just a little bit. So great to see all of you. Thank you all for being here again. We've got a great show ahead for you all. And again, it's the Sunday edition of the show. You're usually at this point in time about ready to see the In the Garden segment with our good friend Mark Rocher-Colbert, Mr. MBC. I am going to kind of make a little sub announcement. We'll talk a little bit more about this next week as we've got the more, we'll talk more about the details on it all and everything, but we're going to make some little adjustments to the In the Garden segment as we move forward in the rest of the gardening season. It's going to be some fun stuff, some cool things we've been working on in the background as well. Mark's still going to be around, and Mark's still going to be here live with us as the co-host of our monthly gardening book club and all of that. But we're going to add some additions and do some fun stuff with the In the Garden segment. And we'll talk a lot about that this next Sunday. But for this Sunday, like I said, we're going to go and check out, because we're talking about trees today. I thought it'd be fun to kind of do a little bit of checking out some container trees I've got in my garden. All right, everybody. Here we are. We are out basically in my garden this week. I thought because we are talking about trees this weekend, specifically today, we're talking about fruit trees with our guest today. So I thought we should go around in my garden and check out all of the different fruit trees that we've got growing, mostly different container trees, and just kind of get a quick little look at them and show you guys. We don't get much of an opportunity to take a look at what's growing on in my garden. As you can see, there ain't much actually at this moment in time. We are building up and getting things going. There's gonna be lots and lots of things growing here. In fact, in just a couple of weeks, there's gonna be so much more growing on in the garden right now as we're getting things going and ready here. Last frost date's coming up real soon, so things are gonna get planted out, and seeds are going to go out directly here real soon. I'm really excited about that. But let's go take a look right over here. As you can see right behind over my shoulder right there, that is our pear tree. Let's go over and take a look at that one first, and then we'll go around and take a look at some of the other ones that we've got growing on around here in my garden. So here we've got a dwarf variety of a red D'Anjou pear growing right out of a container. In fact, maybe this season and next season we're going to start maybe moving up some of our container fruit trees into some bigger containers. But one of the things I'm going to have to do actually real soon, as I'm learning, maybe we'll talk about a little bit with our guests here today, is getting maybe another pear tree, either maybe grafting on another one or getting a whole nother pear tree so we can kind of pair them up, if you will, to help out with the pollination and ensure that we're going to get some fruits growing. But as you see here, we got some fruits on the tree right now. But the one thing I've seen over the last couple of years though is that they usually drop off really shortly after forming like this, and they start to fall off of the tree. This one here doesn't look too well, but no, there seem to be plenty on here right now, so I'll hold out hope that maybe a few of them might hold on to the tree this year. But again, as I've heard, possibly going to need to get another tree to help out, ensuring that we get some good fruit off of this pear tree. And of course, I'm gonna have to prune this up and shape it out just a little bit better too, because it still looks a little funky. All right, and just right down from the pear tree here along the alleyway, growing out of this kind of basket container thing. I can't remember where we got that years ago, but it's a really good size. And we've got our Chicago fig growing out of this container right now. As you can see, our fig's putting off lots of nice new leaves right now. Really starting to take off at this time of year. I haven't seen too much as far as fruit yet coming off of the plant. I think I saw one just down under here. Yeah, there we are. There's a fruit there. But yeah, growing nicely. I love these figs. So I can't wait to be able to harvest some figs off of this tree here and hopefully get it even a little bit bigger for these next coming seasons as well too, so we can really get a lot of great figs off of it. But so far so good. So all right, on the show today, or as I guess it would be yesterday for everybody, I was talking about this grape that I have here, and it's a blueberry variety of grape that we got from Dave Wilson Nursery this last season through our sponsor Ivy Organic. And we'll be talking to Tom Spellman here today from Dave Wilson Nursery. We got this blueberry grape, and it's just really starting to take off and really growing really well right now. So I've got to get this transplanted and move into a different growing space. And like I said, hopefully, again, too, we're going to continue to grow it in a larger container. I have a couple more of these big pots that I was telling you all about here, that I've got one more of those. I'm going to put this in, and we'll see if we can get it to produce some grapes for us this year. So I'm going to get on that here real soon. But right behind that, though, is our peach tree. And this is a frost peach here, another dwarf variety of peach growing out of this container here. And yeah, it's already flowered already and now is setting fruit. So we've got lots and lots of peaches forming all over the tree. It looks like a lot this year too. So hopefully again too that a lot of these fruits will hold on to the tree and produce some really delicious peaches for us this year. And again too, I try to keep my hopes up for it. Every now and then on some seasons we have lots and lots on here on the tree, and then ultimately most of them fall off or something. But we've had some great years. Hoping for another one this year. Let's go to the back here in the back patio area, and I'll show you a couple of our apple trees. So all right, one more thing to look at before we catch up with those apples. Like I said, on the back porch here, I've got a couple of these other fig trees here. This one looking really nice this year. They're really starting to put off some really nice leaves, growing along really nicely. Again, I don't see any sort of fruits trying to form yet or anything. I do have this other one over here too. This one didn't grow very well last year. Basically just put out like a leaf or two, and did put out one single fruit last year, which was really fun, really interesting. But this year it looks like it's starting to want to take off there, growing really nicely. So hopefully we'll get some good size off of this one this year. I got both of these at the same time, actually, if you can believe that or not. But again, I don't know the varieties. I'm gonna have to do some research to kind of look back on all of the different tags and things, or maybe even some of the video I took in order to figure out again which varieties these actually are. But again, maybe we'll figure that out when we get some fruit too as well, and we get to enjoy them. But they are looking really nice this year. I'm gonna have to find a more permanent spot for them. We just got this space right now. Seems to be doing pretty nice, so maybe they'll stay here. Not too sure, but yeah, there we are. Let's go check out those apples. So back here on my back patio, up on top of all of these milk crates, we've got one of our container apple trees. This variety here is the golden treat apple. This one here is really great, delicious apple, because I've actually gotten to eat some off of this tree. The other one not so much, but this one I've gotten several off of, and hopefully we'll get a bunch more this year as well too. But as you can see, this is why we've got them up on all of the milk crates here, is so that they can be right nice and high up here and get above our fence, and be able to get all that good sunlight and produce some great fruit for us here. So hopefully that's the case with this golden treat apple. And also, like I said, we got over here and same setup on top of some milk crates. We've got another variety of apple too. This one I can't remember and I can't find the tag for it. So it's hopefully a delicious apple. I've had both these trees now a couple of years, but this one I haven't really gotten any good apples off of yet. It did produce a bunch of great flowers and all of that too. So I'm hoping that it sets some good fruit on it this year, and we're able to get some to try this year. But I definitely need to start pruning it a little bit better, similar with some of the other trees. But again, that's kind of what today's show's all about, is talking about fruit tree care. So I got to learn some things as well too. So hopefully I'll learn just a little bit more how we can take care of all of our different fruit trees here around our gardens, so that we can get more fruit produced off of them too. And again, like I said, we got some great guests to talk about all of that with. So yeah, there we are. Nice look at our fruit trees here in the garden. Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible feature visits. All right. Am I here? Can everybody hear me? Oh my, something happened there. We had a little glitch during our break, so I hope everybody can hear me. Hopefully everything's going all right, and hopefully everything will continue to go all right. I believe we're still alive. Everything's going okay. All right. Again, we had a fun show yesterday with this sort of thing as well too, as I was just about to talk about here, is we had some glitches on the other end with our guest yesterday too. So we had kind of an interesting show when it came to all of that. And that's just a part of doing live streams like this. So I see Shawnee says, I can hear you. Okay, so good. So you can hear me. I can see everything seems like it's working all right. So we're going to keep moving forward here, and hopefully everything will continue to be all right as well too. Boy, oh boy, glitches. Anyways, real quick here before we get going too with our featured conversation here. Sorry about the glitch. If you didn't get a chance, like I said, go back and check out yesterday's show. We still had an all right conversation. Plus, we got to talk to Sarah's Seed Shop and all of that too. We had Jules Acton, author of Oak Lore, on talking again too. We're talking trees this weekend, so you want to go back and check that out. It was, we got a little bit of a conversation in there, but we're going to bring her back again sometime and really talk about this wonderful book. I really have enjoyed it so far. So it's really a great book. And again, too, if you didn't get a chance to check out the last couple of weeks as well, too, we've been featuring on the Sunday show our good friend Gardner Scott. He was on last week doing his Q&A with all of us. And also, too, he's got his book out, Gardner Scott's Guide to Raised Bed Gardening. So he was our featured book for our monthly gardening book club this last month. So we had Gardner Scott on the last couple of Sundays. You want to check those conversations out if you haven't yet already too. So right on, right on. It's again too that kind of threw me off just a little bit there. So sorry about that, everybody. But let's get moving on today. We've got some really awesome guests. We got a great conversation to get started with here today. So let's get started with this Sunday roundtable. All right. First, let's welcome to the show our good friend and sponsor. Oh, look, see, that's what I'm saying. It really is reset everything here. Let's get this right. Oh man, it like reset all of my stuff. Okay. Charles, how are you doing today? Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Yes, right on. And let's also bring into the show as well, too, for our roundtable, Mr. Tom Spellman. Like I said, it reset everything. There we go. Excellent, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get this tree care conversation started. First of all, let's real quick give you each a moment here to kind of introduce yourselves to everybody and let everybody know. Of course, everybody gets to see you, Charles, every single weekend. We see you twice a weekend, but not very often we get to have you here on the show live. So thanks for being here live. It's good to have you here. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with Ivy Organic.
Thanks. It's always a pleasure to be here, and obviously all the many guests, like rock star guests that you bring to this show. I'm most excited, obviously, for this one with Tom Spellman, and
Absolutely.
I think you put the link in the description below so people can follow Tom Spellman's YouTube channel, where he'll continuously, share education specifically on fruit tree care. He is one of America's leading educators on fruit tree care. I know you're asking about Ivy Organics. I really want to set the stage for Tom, because it's
I know we got plenty to talk about there too. Believe me, we're going to dig right in.
Sharing the floor here with him. But aside from, one of the things I just want to quickly share about Dave Wilson Nursery is they're one of the leading distributors of deciduous fruit trees in the country. And aside from the value in fruit trees that they bring in the backyard, gardens throughout America, is that they're obviously making a massive footprint on producing, the value of what trees do for our environment, improving oxygen, air quality, purifying air, creating shade, and among other values that the trees bring. And Dave Wilson's a part of it, as is Tom, with making sure that each tree you bring into your property succeeds. Ivy Organic has been, we're now celebrating our 10th year, and we're proud to have helped thousands of gardeners throughout America and around the world with our original products, which is based on whitewashing trees in a patented, OMRI certified. This year's actually one of our primary selling products. It's Color White Ivy Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard protection against damaging summer sunburn, insects, and rodents, which when you basically plant your trees, it's important to protect them to curb weather extremes, whether it be the hottest days of summer or the coldest days of winter. But it also has in it, basically, it comes as a, basically once you open the can, it comes with this base powder, which includes limestone and clay and these mill proteins that create a strong bond that's about as long lasting as paint. In addition to these oils that you'll find, which include castor, cinnamon, clove, peppermint, rosemary, spearmint, and garlic. I don't know if I repeated that, but there's 7 natural oils that basically create that repellent protection against the insects and then the rodents. Specifically for rodents, is castor and the spearmint and peppermint offer that rodent repellent protection. And most people don't really think about what rodents can do, but across America, typically in the winter months, rodents will begin girdling the base of the tree to get to the underlying saps, to get to the carbohydrates. When they're starving, when there's no seeds, no fruits, they'll start attacking the bark. But this is a year-round issue we've noticed for gardeners in the Bay Area. The rats affect little trees year-round. And then the other thing too with these oils, such as the cinnamons and other particular oils that are within the product, offer the insect repellent protection. So on your prune branches, grafting wounds, And just along the tree trunk as well, it basically offers protection against pests and disease in addition to curbing those weather extremes so that that bark, especially your youngest trees or those trees. What happened there?
Oh.
A little bit of an echo. I think I corrected it.
Okay, no problem.
So again, the whitewashing offers that protection. It's a practice that's been going on for thousands of years. Most gardeners don't know about it. Ivory Organic has introduced it through its YouTube channel about 10 years ago. And we're proud to share that we've grown to become America's leading garden product YouTube channel in America with now over 200,000 subscribers. And we educate a lot of people on what the value of whitewashing can do for your fruits and vegetables and even your ornamentals.
Yeah. Bill's joining the conversation there. He says, if you are wrapping your fig during the winter in a colder climate, rats will get into there and do that exact damage you're describing. So yeah, the plant guard would be a better option at that point then.
Yeah, so there's basically I'm only holding, actually I've got it right here. So there's also the blue can, which is oil free. Yeah. So if pest is not the issue and the goal is whitewash, there's that option. If you're looking for the pest protection with the oils, it's the yellow label products. And then they're available in various colors. White is the one I'm holding right now, but it comes in colors brown and green and gray and grayish to basically match your bark. And a lot of people, the first question they ask is, which one offers the best protection for my plants? White naturally will keep your plants the coolest and reflect the most light and heat. But regardless of your color, like here I'm wearing a darker color. If I'm in the sun, as now here we are going into summer within the next couple of months with 14 hours of daylight here in Southern California. And on a young tree, you know, here I've got an example, pomegranate tree here. And you can see the canopy is like way up here. But this tree trunk, if it's in the sun, is going to get 14 hours of light on this young one, maximum tier growth wood, and it's going to create first, second, and third degree burns just as if it was your own body. So regardless of the protection and however you whitewash and protect it, it's going to offer protection to the bark and ultimately protect the underlying cambium tissues, which control the xylem phloem and all the the movement of the carbohydrates and waters within the plant. So you're basically protecting the bark until that canopy gets big and large enough to naturally protect the understory of the tree. And the other time also is a lot of people, and maybe Tom will get into it, is summer pruning. And that again opens the canopy and possible exposure for risk of sunburn damage, even on your more mature trees. And again, the other cool thing I just want to plug in with Ivory Organic is being that we are OMRI certified. Again, this helps all of our commercial growers that we support across the country that rely on our label for their organic gardening practices. And we're basically taking the place of people that for the last 50 years have been using paint and or tar products to accomplish the value of whitewashing, but those are impermeable surfaces compared to the Ivory Organics, which dries on porous, allowing the exchange of air and nutrients, which is important for the health of the plant, especially prune branches and grafting wounds. So it's a healthier protection, and it just gives your plants, I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to care for them, so we offer them longevity. You just did a tour of your fruit trees. We want to make sure that we get maximum fruit yields, and we want that plant to put in its resources towards growth and fruiting and flowering and doing all the things that we want it to do, not necessarily combating first, second, third degree burns, which is what a lot of unprotected trees are dealing with that are not whitewashed properly.
Yeah, definitely. I can attest to that for sure. I've done that. So whitewashing for the summer is definitely a requirement for me with the type of sun that we get around here. And for everybody, if you want, there's a link right down below to ivyorganics.com, or you can just go to ivyorganics.com, nice and simple there, and use promo code GROW10. Oh, look at that, Charles, you're always prepared.
I got it printed and ready to go.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. You go check that out and get some of that great 3-in-1 plant guard for some of your trees too, for sure. But yeah, right on. Excellent. Thanks, Charles and Tom. It's awesome to have you back again. Thanks for coming up. We had such a great conversation last year doing this roundtable. I was like, we got to do this again for sure and get you back on to talk about tree care and backyard orchard culture and all of this sort of fun stuff. And again, thanks for being here. And just a quick minute for you as well, too. Just kind of introduce yourself and let everybody know about yourself and Dave Wilson Nursery as well, too.
Sure. So I have been in horticulture in California now for over 50 years, and with Dave Wilson Nursery now for about 23 as a Southwestern sales manager. And Dave Wilson Nursery is a great company as far as producing trees for both commercial agriculture and for the backyard grower, for the home gardener. So we have two different divisions, one that basically supplies commodity varieties to commercial agriculture, and another division that I represent that supplies trees for home growers. And you know what we're looking for the home grower is we're looking for all the varieties that are specifically geared towards flavor. You know, I'm not as concerned with commercial attributes. You know, if it doesn't get giant sized, if it doesn't cold store for 3 months, I don't really care. Basically, what I'm looking for is fruit that really tastes good, and having a whole succession of adaptable varieties that can be grown all around the country. You know, we have varieties that will take pretty much every climate in the United States. So it's been really fun to represent Dave Wilson Nursery, and I just, you know, can't say enough good things about what we've done, and being able to communicate with all the home growers and let people know that, you know, you don't have to think like a commercial farmer. I don't want you to think like a commercial farmer.
Right.
I want you to do things on a backyard scale and concentrate on varieties that you like and you'll use, and varieties that are adaptable to your climate and your soil.
Yeah. That's excellent stuff. So yeah, again, too, links for Dave Wilson Nursery down below in the description too, for everybody. Go check out all of the wonderful tree varieties that you have available there. So again, yeah, I took everybody on a little tour of some of my my little container trees that I've got growing around my place here too and everything. So maybe I thought I'd start there. I mean, we're talking about tree care. Let's talk about the trees that I've got going. I just showed there. Anything you got to say about any of the trees that you noticed there? Because you guys were in the back watching and checking them out. Any thoughts on my on my trees that I've got growing here?
Well, I think, you know, the first thing that I noticed is you had mentioned a couple. Well, that 1 gallon fig in particular. Oh, well, it really didn't grow very much last year. Well, it's in a container that's now smaller than the structure of the plant. So, you know, you've got this very confined root zone. And once you get a situation like that where you're not really allowing that root system to expand out and grow, you don't get much top growth anymore. So my recommendation to you would be take everything that's been in a container for more than a year and a half or 2 years and get that bumped up into another container a little bit larger. That will give you another couple of seasons. It will allow the plant to expand out. It will allow the plant to become more productive. And one of the things that's key to management of any container grown plant, not only fruit trees, but basically anything you're going to do in a container, is try and keep the canopy size in balance with the root zone that you've given that tree to grow in. So if I have say a half whiskey barrel that's about 33 gallons in capacity, I'm gonna keep the structure of that tree in balance, or no more than maybe 1.5 times the size of the root zone that tree's in. And what that's going to do is that's going to give you longevity. That's going to allow that plant to grow in that container for a number of years and thrive and produce and give you good fruit. And, you know, everybody always comes back and says, well, I went down to the retail nursery and they had a 15-gallon liquid amber tree that was 8 feet tall in a container that was, you know, a quarter the size of the tree itself. Right. Absolutely. So what that represents is a tree that is not meant for longevity in that container. It's meant to grow in that container for a season or 1.5 seasons. be purchased and taken home and planted out into somebody's landscape. So that's a temporary situation, not a situation where you're going to get longevity. And you know, also another thing that's extremely important, and Charles already touched on most of it. Most people don't realize how important it is to protect against sunburn on a container grown plant. They think, oh, well, okay, I took this plant home, so now I can plant it out into the landscape and I'll get that sunburn protection on. But that plant in a container is even more susceptible to sun stress and physical stress than a tree that's in the landscape because of that confinement of the root zone. So if you're planning on growing trees for an extended period in containers, that sunburn protection is every bit as important as a tree in the landscape.
Excellent. How about for you, Charles? There you go.
I can add to that. So one of the things that caught my attention is the peaches, and peaches pretty much across the country will suffer something called the peach tree borers. Eventually, like something with not the peach tree borers, other beetles, termites, whether it be peaches, apples, a lot of other fruit trees, cherries deal with this issue. The whitewashing, in addition to curbing the weather extremes, both these products, the 3-in-1 and whitewash products, have diatomaceous earth in them. And for those of you that don't know how diatomaceous earth works, it's basically a crushed diatom. Diatoms are single-cell organisms that float on the ocean surfaces, contribute towards our world supply of oxygen. But the fossils, like from millions of years ago, they've accumulated in certain parts of the country, such as Utah. There's like mountains of this stuff, and they basically crush it down, and it serves basically as a crushed glass on insects that have an exoskeleton. So beetles, termites, ants, anything that you're basically trying to protect from entering the surface, diatomaceous earth basically serves as that. If they get it on their exoskeleton, it basically scratches up their exoskeleton and causes them to dry out, shortening their life. So that's the effect of diatomaceous earth within the products, and could be of value and maybe something you can do soon to your peach tree. And the other thing you mentioned is pear tree for cross-pollination. We saw fruit on there. There's a lot of, and I'm sure Tom will expand on this as well, is the fact that even your self-fruitful variety fruit trees, by having another within, not identical fruit tree, but within the related group of fruits, such as with pears, there's hundreds of other varieties of pears you can select from, and just having something related within the pear family, or with your apples, as I saw you have two, that's going to help improve cross-pollination, which helps with fruit set. So you're going to end up with more apples. You're going to end up with larger size apples. You're going to end up with tastier fruit. It basically improves the quality in a lot of ways just by having cross-pollination between related, species of plants, such as two varieties of apples, as you've done in your garden. So a couple of things, and then the last thing I want to share is fertilizer.
How close do like if you need two trees for more pollination, like you're saying, kind of how close should they be though, in a sense?
I'll give that to Tom. You can answer.
Well,
Tom.
Within bees flight, you want bees to be able to go in between the trees. I always like to say, if it's within 10 feet, you're golden. If it's within 20 feet, you're going to get decent cross-pollination. Once you get beyond about 30 feet, the pollination benefit is going to go down considerably. So try and keep them within, say, 10, 15 to maybe 25 feet, and I think you're going to achieve, very, very good cross-pollination from the bees.
What about what I was talking about there in the video too, about the idea of maybe adding on another variety as a graft?
Oh, absolutely. You can graft another pear variety into that tree.
It would do the same purpose, basically, right?
Close by, but even like Charles mentioned, even having a self-fertile variety with a built-in cross-pollinator or a cross-pollinator close by, your fruit crop goes up by 3 to 5 times. So, a commercial farmer would never consider anything to be 100% self-fertile. They're always going to build a pollinator into a commercial orchard so that they can get a better, higher yield on those trees. And that goes for home gardeners as well. Self-fertile is great, but don't necessarily rely on it. And the nice thing about, building in a second variety or a third variety is now you can also consider one of the great benefits of backyard orchard culture, which is successive harvest. I'm going to put in a variety that's a little earlier and maybe a variety that's a little later. So now
Yes.
instead of having 3 weeks worth of pears, I have a month and a half or 2 months worth of pears out of the space where a commercial grower may have just grown one full-size commercial tree.
Yeah, that's perfect. So, I know you want to go, Charles. Go ahead. Just jump right in when you want to.
Before we lose the thought, so successive
problem.
ripening, Tom, if you go to the Tom Spellman YouTube channel, we did a publication at Cal Poly Pomona's Lyle Center where Tom goes into great detail about the value of successive ripening, how many plants you can actually plant in a single planting hole. I know most of your trees are in container.
Yeah, exactly.
But for those that are watching that have in tree ground plantings, you know, and you're trying to maximize cross pollination and what you can do with limited space, Tom Spellman explains it very well, and maybe Tom can go more into it as to in regards to you're talking about distance between fruit trees to improve cross pollination. How close can you actually go if you're putting them all in the same hole? I mean, that kind of answers it.
Oh, yeah, you can plant, you know, at Dave Wilson Nursery, we've done trials on this for the last 30 years. And, you know, my good friend Ed Livo and I have planted trials all over the Western United States that have proven that you can grow multiple budded or multiple planted fruit trees on a close spacing. We've braided trees together before. We had a fig in our commercial planting where we planted 3 figs right together and actually braided the 3 trunks together. So we had this crazy looking gnarly fig trunk that would produce a green fig, a white fig, and a black fig all together on the same plant. So
wow, that would be cool to see.
And you got to remember, again, you're not a commercial farmer. Commercial farmers can space his trees at 15 feet apart or you know 12 feet apart, depending on what the trees are. And I've seen a couple of videos on YouTube that said, "Oh, your trees have to be spaced at 20 feet apart." That's a ridiculous concept for a home gardener. Home gardeners don't have that much space. Home gardeners should be able to companion plant on a close spacing so that they can get maximum yield out of the land that they've devoted to fruit production.
Exactly. And on that too, so let's really dig into that too, because you know, we've talked about and mentioned already a couple of times, what is really backyard orchard culture when we're talking about that specifically?
Thank you for the opportunity. So we've been preaching backyard orchard culture for a number of years, and it's one of those things that once people really think about it, most people have already been doing it. You know, it's not anything new for a home gardener because space has been limited. So there's 3 main concepts, in my opinion, to backyard orchard culture. And number 1, successive harvest. You want to get the most out of your space that you can. Now, if I'm a commercial grower of peaches up in the San Joaquin Valley in California, I'm going to grow 10 acres or 30 acres or 100 acres of the same variety maybe with a pollinator built in if I need it on some of the other prunus. But my goal is tonnage. I want lots and lots of fruit. I want 250 to 350 pounds of fruit from each one of those trees. So that's what I do for a living. I want to get my harvest and get my check, and you know, I'm a successful farmer. But as a backyard grower, that's the last thing that they want. Nobody has use for 350 pounds of peaches, and unless you're making 100 quarts of peach jam, or you know, you're dehydrating hundreds of pounds of fruit, or you have a roadside stand. If you want it for home use, you know what? For me, if I get somewhere between 50 and 75 pieces of fruit of a variety like a peach or a plum or a nectarine or an apricot that ripens up over a 2 to a 4 week period, I'm perfectly happy with that. I don't need hundreds of pounds. I don't want hundreds of pounds. That becomes intimidating to what I want. But what I do want is I want another variety before that. I want another variety after that, or maybe a couple of varieties after that.
Yeah.
So with backyard orchard culture, we're taking successive ripening into consideration. You're going to put in early, mid-season, late-season varieties. You're going to put in varieties that ripen up at different times of the year so that you can make the best use out of your backyard space. That's the number 1 and probably most important concept. And number two is really pretty simple. Number two is control tree size so it's manageable for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not ever going to tell anybody how big their tree should be. I'm going to say control tree size so it's manageable for you. And if a 20-foot apple tree or a 20-foot plum tree is manageable for you and you want to grow that tree, I have no problem with that. It's not my tree. I don't really care what you do with your tree.
Mm-hmm.
My plum tree or my peach tree or my nectarine or apricot tree are going to be as high as I can reach by standing next to the tree and putting my arm up. So I'm looking at a tree that I'm going to keep control at about 7.5 or 8 feet on all of those varieties that ripen up in a short period of time. So choose a size that works for you and be willing to accept the responsibility of keeping those trees managed at that size. Number two concept. Number three, pretty simple again. Grow what you like and what you'll use and what's adaptable to your climate and your soil type. So, if I don't like something, there's no reason to grow it. And I had a great phone call, and this goes back probably 15 years ago. And this guy says to me, I answer the phone. He doesn't even introduce himself. He just says, what do you do with quince? And I said, well, when I was a kid, I used to throw them at cats on my grandmother's back fence. And he said, oh, well, my wife's a cat lover. I don't want to do that. But here's my story. He says, 5 years ago, I went down to the local discount store and they had all their leftover bare root trees on sale for $5. I said, hey, you know what? You can't grow a tree for $5. I mean, that's fantastic. What an opportunity to be able to buy some trees at a discount like that. And he said, yeah, but all they had left were quince. So I bought 5 of them. And I said, well, okay. Now you've dedicated 5 years, minimal financial investment of $25, but now you've dedicated 5 years worth of your growing space, 5 years worth of irrigation, 5 years worth of pruning, fertilizing, managing those trees to grow a crop of fruit that you didn't even have an idea of what to do with. He says, I went out and picked one off the tree and I took a bite and it was horrible. I threw it down on the ground.
Wow.
Well, quince is not kind of fruit that you eat out of hand. Quince is a processing fruit. They make jams and jellies, and my grandmother used to make these wonderful quince tarts, and they were just fantastic. But you don't just take a bite out of it,
Right.
I said, well, now I realize that. So do your due diligence. Do your homework up front and make sure
all that time it takes to realize that, though.
Exactly. It took him 5 years to realize that it was a fruit that he had no use for and really didn't want in the first place. So don't make that mistake.
Yeah.
All that information is published, right harvest seasons. What is the pollinator that's recommended? What does the fruit taste like? Is it a clingstone? Is it a freestone? What all the attributes are there. You can read up on anything and go to the local farmers markets, try some varieties out. You'll find something that works for you and that's what you want to plant. So number one, successive harvest. Take advantage of the longest seasons that you have in your particular growing zone. And guys, I consider us to be extremely lucky to be gardening in California. My landscape in Southern California, I can go out every day of the year and pick a fruit. And for me, that's a wonderful thing. I went out this morning. I picked Pinkerton avocado.
Oh my!
I picked Gold Nugget mandarin.
Oh my!
I picked Parent Washington navel orange. I picked Valentine hybrid. Valentine is a UC Riverside introduction that is a hybrid between pomelo, mandarin, and blood orange. It's fantastic.
What kind is that again?
It's called Valentine.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, wonderful variety. So, that's just what I walked out and picked in 5 minutes this morning. So, growing here in Southern California is a wonderful opportunity to eat out of your landscape every single day. I consider that to be a gift. That's something that doesn't happen all over the country, but take full advantage of your growing season. Grow as many successive ripening varieties as you can for your growing season to make, full advantage of your backyard space. So successive harvest, size control the trees so they're manageable for you, Don't let
Yeah.
anybody tell you how big your tree should be. You're the one in charge. You're the one that's going to make that decision. I've worked on gardens for handicapped veterans where none of the trees were over about 4.5 feet tall. So wheelchair access, there's all kinds of opportunity to do what works for you in your particular garden, and then grow what you like and what you use and what's adaptable to your area. If you just follow those 3 main concepts, you'll be a much, much better backyard grower and be able to take full advantage out of your growing space.
Yeah, it just makes so much sense too. And as you explain it there too, just sounds so right. Like, I just want to be able to get as much as I can out of a shorter season. I'm just a little bit more north, but it's still a bit cooler. I probably couldn't grow that citrus without taking some extra measures and some real other things to do so. But, taking advantage of the time I do have, though, to grow some of these other things that I would really enjoy. You talk about that quince.
And let's go right.
Why buy stuff out of a sale? I'm sorry, but why buy something out of sale that I'm not too sure of or anything like that? And it's similar to things in the garden as well. We really want to grow the things we enjoy, but have variety in the things that we grow and enjoy. And that's one of the great things about growing things ourselves is the opportunity to be able to do that.
And for your particular situation, let's go right back to container gardening. So you're not going to grow a Valentine Pomelo hybrid or a Washington Navel Orange or a Gold Nugget Mandarin out in your garden soil, but you can easily grow those in containers. And during the fall, you move them into cover. And in the spring, when the weather warms up and the danger of frost is gone, you move them right back out. So citrus has been grown all over the world for thousands of years in areas where it's not adaptable under indoor or covered conditions.
Yeah. I tried once, and again too, I'm still trying to convince myself to give it another try, but I tried once years ago, and it was early on in my gardening experience. So you already see my fruit trees as they are. I'm not much of a tree person per se, but I tried with the citrus once and it didn't go too well. I tried to keep that thing alive through a couple of seasons and eventually just gave in. And I kind of at that point was like, I don't know, citrus was such a challenge. But I've been trying to get myself up to doing it again, and I probably should give it another try at some point.
Absolutely. Get yourself a Meyer lemon or a Nagami kumquat and, get it in a container and grow it on and enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. Right on. How's it? How you doing over there, Charles? You got anything you want to jump in with there?
No, I'm enjoying all of this. Serena Norrell, I know she's writing to me on the right side, enjoying all the dialogue, conversation that's happening in the chat room right now. Garden State Gardener, thanks for the testimonial with the fertilizer. One other thing I just want to plug in when it comes to the fruit tree care, which I'm sure Tom will expand on, and I pulled this up, but I didn't get to share much, is time for fertilizing. We're approaching one of the most important times for feeding your plants, which is May, to make sure that you've got all the nutrients in the soil in time for June. With obviously the first day of summer, it means more than just that. It's the longest light days of the year. Plants' metabolism is peaking, growth, fruiting, so forth. Obviously, depending on where the plant is with the fruiting cycle, but with maximum light hours, we got plants maximizing metabolically. You're going to want to make sure all the nutrients are there. And aside from, for those of you that are new here, aside from the whitewash products that Ivory Organics got started with, we also went into the fertilizer business because we noticed not like 98% of the companies out there are focusing only on NPK and saying that plants only have 3 macronutrients. When in fact, if you Google this, and I teach at nurseries and garden centers, that I get invited to, and one of my first questions are like, what are the, how many macronutrients do plants need? And everybody says only NPK, even though people working at the garden centers for decades are like, plants only need nitrogen, which is your N, if on the periodic table, P for your phosphorus, which helps with flowering and fruiting, and then K, your potassium for disease resistance, root development, and so forth. All of them are important synergetically to complement the other. So it's important to have, I would say, all of the elements, but maybe if the goal is, the plant's done reaching its maximum height, cut back on the nitrogen, focus more on the P and the K. and vice versa. If the goal is growth and we're not focusing on flowering and fruiting, you still need the P and the K because they're involved in more than just fruiting, flowering, and root development. It's part of, just like with our own health, if we're just eating carbs and not getting the protein, or if we're only eating fat and not, getting the other two, like there's a balance. And then there's multivitamins and obviously the hundreds, of elements our body needs to properly function. Similarly, plants have 6 macronutrients. So we talked about the NPK. The other ones are magnesium, which is the heart of the chlorophyll molecule, calcium, which accounts for up to 30% of the dry weight of plants, and the last one is sulfur, which is important in a lot of the enzymatic processes within the plant. And the bags of fertilizer I just want to quickly share with you that Ivory Organic makes is these all-purpose bags. It says 222 on this one here, which is the premium blend, and this one here is a 4-pound bag. You can take a tablespoon of it to a gallon of water and use it as a foliar feed or drench. And then there's the super blend, which what's so cool about this is it has plus azomite. And for those of you that know azomite simply crushed volcanic rock, and it brings the added value of having a lot of the micronutrient nutrition as well. But both of these products have all of your 6 plant macronutrients. And as we get into May, this is a very important time to get ready to start feeding your plants to make sure that they have everything they need by the time. And the other thing too, I mean, the reason I'm saying May is these products are all OMRI certified, and meaning that they're organic. And the reason you're feeding in May is to give the soil biology, your earthworms, beneficial bacteria, mycorrhiza, the chance to break these organic compounds to make them readily available to the plants come June. So that's the reason you're starting about a month sooner with your organic fertilizers compared to, let's say, the synthetic stuff. But Ivory Organics is proud to be a part of the equation and the education on helping people achieve maximum health and success with their gardening projects.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, time to go feed, right? Go get some of that IV organic fertilizer. Let's see here, Tom. What should I know about microclimates when I'm thinking about my trees and growing trees?
Well, I think this is one of the most important questions that a professional horticulturalist should be asking his clientele. If you live in a particular USDA zone or a sunset zone, that's vast. It's huge. It's a large geographic area. But understanding what happens on your individual piece of property is so much more important than just a generalized zone. I want to know where the damaging winds come from. Here in Southern California, we get what they call the Santa Ana winds, and they can do, as we've seen over the last few years, a considerable amount of damage. So I'm not going to take a plant like a banana or a papaya or something that's susceptible to wind damage and put it right in a wind zone. I'm going to put it in an area that's sheltered. We also need to consider our soil types. How is my soil? Is it fast draining? Is it medium draining? Is it a heavy clay soil? You want to know exactly what your soil type is like before you start to plant any particular plant in your landscape. You may have, if it's a real heavy soil and you're planting an avocado or something that requires fast draining soil, you may have to build it in a raised bed, or you may have to put it up on a mound so that you get that root crown up above your native soil. You want to know your exposure. Where do I get full sun all the time? Where do I get partial shade? Where is it sunny in the summer and shady in the winter? Maybe you have a row of trees on the south side of your property, so that when the sun goes south in the fall and winter, you get a lot of shade, and then when it comes back north in the spring and summer, you get sun in that area. So understanding all of these things about your individual piece of property is the first thing you need to do before you start to just plunk trees or bushes or anything in the ground. You want to know
especially the trees and the bushes and the things that are going to be taking up space for years and years at a time, right? This is the commitment you're making, more so than, say, annuals you're just doing for a short period of time. They're in and they're out. Some of this stuff is still kind of important. But
Right.
especially the stuff that's going to be there for quite a while, right?
Yeah,
wanna be
you don't
thinking
want to
about
be
that ahead of
making
time.
that, you don't want to make that mistake. I mean, hey, you know what? If I plant a tomato in the wrong place or a marigold in the wrong place, next year I
Mhm.
move it somewhere else. But if
Exactly.
I put a fruit tree in or a plant that's going to be a permanent piece of structure in my landscape and
Yeah.
it's in the wrong place, then I'm going to have to take that out. I'm going to have to start over with a considerably more expensive plant than a tomato.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It really
understanding your
makes that
microclimate up front makes
yeah,
all the difference in the world on being successful.
exactly, exactly. Right on, right on. And what about the importance of rootstocks? Let's talk about the importance of rootstocks. We're talking
Oh,
about
great!
trees because
I'm
now, I
glad
mean,
you
we're talking
brought
about
that up.
microclimates. We got this stuff down. Now we're going to go into rootstock now because we're going to pick out some trees and we want to put them out there. We kind of have an idea of what we're looking for, but we want to be thinking about the rootstock when
Sure.
we're
So,
choosing these trees, right?
what a lot of people don't understand about most fruit trees is most fruit trees are a component of two living organisms. They're a rootstock, which is
Mhm.
the motor. It's the heartbeat. It's what moves the carbohydrates and nutrients through the system. It's what allows that tree to function. And then on top
Yeah.
of that is grafted a cultivar or a variety. So if I plant a Fuji apple, or if I plant a Santa Rosa plum, or I plant red Baron peach, I'm going to have a rootstock that is compatible to my variety, that's adaptable to my geography and my soil type. And that can vary depending on where you are in the country or what your soil type is like. So you can
Yeah.
have the right variety for your area, but if it's on the wrong rootstock, it's still going to be a poor functioning tree. So you need
Right.
to understand the root system itself and its adaptabilities to your climate and your soil. And then you need to understand the cultivar or the variety that's going to give you the fruit to make sure that it's also adaptable to your climate. So for a great example would be Santa Rosa plum. Santa Rosa plum is one of those varieties that is adaptable to climates all over the country. We can grow it close to the ocean. We can grow it in the desert. We can grow it in the mountains. We can grow it up in the northern climates. But every one
Yeah.
of those climates has a different specific weather pattern. And for
Mm.
every one of those climates, we're going to put Santa Rosa plum on a different rootstock. So
Wow, interesting. Yeah.
if you don't understand that and you just buy a Santa Rosa plum and don't understand the root system itself, you may very well be getting the variety that's going to do well on a rootstock that's not. So that's going to be a tree that you won't be successful with. So
Yeah.
again, do your homework up front. If you went to the Dave Wilson Nursery website and went to the home garden page and went to variety descriptions, there's a description of all those different rootstocks and the soil types that it takes and the
Yeah.
climates, weather conditions that it takes. So, you have to make sure that you understand both of those, living organisms that are going to be combined as one tree in your landscape.
Ex-
To
Jump
add
on.
to the rootstock discussion, if and I feel like I've heard this in years past. If Enoch were to buy a Santa Rosa plum, let's stick to the same tree, in his northern United States climate versus me in the southern California climate, versus let's say another purchaser of the Santa Rosa plum off the Dave Wilson Nursery website in the sandy soils of Florida. So we've got three different geographies and they're shopping their local nurseries. Is there a difference with the Santa Rosa rootstocks that they're purchasing from their local nurseries versus if they just went to the big box store and got their hands on a Santa Rosa plum that way versus Dave Wilson Nursery? I think they put a little bit more thought into which trees go in which direction based on geography, correct?
There very well could be a big difference.
Mhm.
Oftentimes a big box store will make this huge corporate buy, and maybe they go up to a grower in Oregon and buy 10,000 Santa Rosa plums, and then they
Yeah.
say, ship 50 to Portland and 50 to Boise and 50 to Sacramento and 50 to Santa Barbara and 50 to San Diego, 50 to Phoenix, Arizona, so on, so on, and so on. But what they didn't realize is that all of those 10,000 Santa Rosa plums are all budded to the same rootstock. And maybe it's a rootstock that is adaptable to a specific climate or soil type only. So somebody's going to get lucky, if it's on St. Julian, the guy in Boise is going to do just fine, but the guy in Yuma is going to lose his tree within 6 months to a year. So, you want to make sure that you're dealing with a nursery or garden center that understands the horticultural needs of that tree in your area. A good quality garden center or nursery is going to understand what does well in the area, and they're going to stock that type of material. Where oftentimes a big box store just brings in this huge corporate buy, and it's the same thing for everybody. So if it's a gallon of paint or a pound of nails, it's not going to make that much difference. But if it's a tree, it's absolutely going to make a difference.
Right. So kind of on the line of what Charles is talking about there, though, too, is that, so the big box stores, they got one set of rootstock. It's probably something they've just done in massive amounts and everything. So that makes sense. And then a localized nursery is going to purchase and set things up. But for, like, say, Dave Wilson Nursery, your people are ordering on there. Charles kind of mentioned there too. So you guys at that nursery, though, are kind of thinking about where you're sending things to, though, right, as well, right?
Absolutely. We have sales reps that represent all parts of the country. I'm going to sell Santa Rosa plum on a different rootstock for Southern California than I am for Phoenix, Arizona, or Las Vegas, Nevada. So everywhere that we're going to send that tree, we're going to cater it on a rootstock that's adaptable to that climate and their soil types.
Wow, that's just awesome. It's and really too, kind of really something really important to be thinking about too, as you're thinking about your trees too, and something I didn't when I'm originally getting mine, and it's something I'm definitely going to keep more in mind too as I think about others and other varieties and everything too, because that is you want the best success you can get. You want something that's going to be able to grow locally the best it can versus something that's just can be, that's just sold generally to anybody out there. So that's why it's always, it's always kind of, always good to be kind of skeptical of buying most anything from big box stores when it comes down to it, right?
Yeah, and you may have a big box store that has a nursery department manager that understands that and brings in the right varieties for the area. But if that tree doesn't have a tag that tells you not only what the variety is, but what the rootstock is as well, then you're rolling the dice on 50% of that. If you're a gambler, go ahead and take the shot. But if you want to make sure you're going to be successful, make sure both of those things are identified on the tag.
If I can answer one of the questions and give a personal example, Big Will Dog 82 writes, what makes one rootstock the right choice over another if each is fit to handle the same soil? And the point is, take a look at like the rootstock as if it were a tree of its own, and which one would succeed the best in that environment, whether it be vigor or maybe sometimes it's not vigor that you want. And here's the personal example. In my backyard, I found a stretch of real estate that was ideal for growing citrus, but it had also significant amounts of shade. I have a hillside property, so I'm actually, if we can also piggyback on the microclimate discussion we had a few minutes ago, I'm dealing with about 3 months of shade on about 50% of my backyard footprint. So in that area that has 3 months of shade in the winter months, I have all my deciduous trees lined up there. And that's how I basically work with that microclimate, where had I put citrus there, they would starve to death and die with zero light. And the other thing I have in that stretch of deciduous fruit trees is I have a banana plant. And you would think, how can you grow bananas without sun? And I've experimented with different kinds of banana, and I'm growing the tallest like ice cream variety banana, blue Java, that grows about 15 feet. So the last 5 to 10 feet reach the sunlight, but the whole lower canopy is in the shade for about 2 to 3 months. The plant does not grow at all in the winter months, but resumes growth when the temperature warms. Come now, here we are, April, May, and I've got a bunch of fruit, and you'll see a lot of YouTube videos where I'm harvesting off these bananas, somewhere between 50 to 70 pounds of fruit annually from our bananas that are grown in a shady climate. So going back to rootstock, this stretch of real estate that has partial shade, I've noticed grows pretty well Meyer lemons. So oranges I've tried growing there, failed. Other varieties of lemons, not so good. But Meyers seem to tolerate the shade better than most other varieties of citrus. And you'll notice from the stretch of real estate, again, Ivory Organics, if you search Ivory Organics and Meyer lemons, you'll see that off of 3 Meyer lemons, I'm harvesting close to 100 to 200 pounds of lemons between 3 plants that I keep hedged at about 5, maximum 6 feet tall, and they're on standard rootstock. Had I done a standard rootstock using a Eureka lemon, for example, it would be too tall and it would be impossible to really train to keep that short. The rootstock really controls the vigor and the vegetative growth. So some rootstocks want the plants to be large, and it has to put out X amount of wood in order for it to then begin budding, flowering, and ultimately supporting fruit. So, but with Meyer lemons, because they're so compact naturally and bushy in habit, I use the standard rootstock on my Eureka lemons and easily trained it to be between 5 and 6 feet, again, due to its growth pattern. Compared to right next to it, I have a Eureka lemon that's on semi-dwarf rootstock that I train at about 8 to 10 feet. So on a small ladder, again, I'm off of one tree, just getting between 100 to 200 pounds of Eureka lemons. Had that been on a standard rootstock, it would be harder to control that vigor. So these are things where selecting the right rootstock will make your life easier or harder depending on what the goals are on your property, aside from soil type, disease resistance, and so forth. But again, one of the main things I wanted to share with that question up above is imagine that rootstock if it were just standing on its own, which one would thrive the best in your soil and in your environment? And then grafting on that means you'll get to enjoy the flavors that that is basically the scion wood or desired fruit that you want to enjoy off of that rootstock that's offering you the disease resistance, the soil type, the managed control size, and so forth.
Well, and that's basically true. But again, my opinion on rootstocks is I don't ever consider rootstocks for their dwarfing capabilities. The only thing I take into consideration on rootstocks is, are they adaptable to my climate? Are they adaptable to my soil? After that, I'm going to choose the size. I'm going to be in control of how big my tree gets. But, it's interesting that you mentioned Meyer lemon, Eureka lemon, because, a semi-dwarf Eureka lemon is going to be 3 times larger, unpruned, than a standard Meyer lemon. So, Eureka is just an extremely vigorous variety. It's completely different from a Meyer lemon. They shouldn't even really be in the same type of classification because of the variance in growth habits. And there are very few fruiting plants that are going to fall into that category like that, where you can find such an extreme. Meyer lemon is really should almost be considered a genetic dwarf or a dwarf within itself, where it can be grown on a standard rootstock and still only get 6 or 7 or 8 feet, where a dwarf Eureka can easily get 15 or more. So that's a different classification. But for most fruit trees, I'm going to say if you're just buying a tree on a rootstock because it's semi-dwarf, you stand a good chance of failing with that rootstock because it may not be adaptable to your climate. So always consider adaptabilities first, whether it's adaptable to my climate, my weather, my soil, and then you choose the size and keep the tree whatever size works best for you.
Yeah, right on. Let's see. We had some questions popping in too, so let's drop one of those in there. English Ladies Kitchen Garden was asking, when should I prune my fruit trees to restrict the size? Talking about that there. So when should I be thinking about doing that?
Again, you're not a commercial farmer, so I did an interesting experiment about 20 years ago when just after I started working with Dave Wilson Nursery, and I went around and I interviewed about a half a dozen different commercial farmers, and I asked them 2 questions. I said, number 1, when do you prune your trees? And at the time, they said, and we prune our trees in the winter. And the next question was, why do you prune your trees in the winter? And I expected to get this answer. Well, the tree goes into a physical state of dormancy and it drops all its foliage. And we can see all the interior structure, and we can make all these intelligent pruning decisions at that time. And that's what I expected to hear. And every one of those guys told me, we prune our trees in the winter because that's when we have time.
Mm.
That's when we have labor available to do it. We're not thinning, we're not
There you
harvesting, not spraying, we're not, doing all these other chores that we do during the growing season. So that's when we have time. Well, and even with that, philosophies in commercial agriculture have changed considerably over the last 20 years. If you look at a grower of stone fruits up in the San Joaquin Valley now, say peach, plum, nectarine, especially apricots and cherries, and you ask them when they do their pruning, almost nobody does much pruning in the wintertime anymore. They almost all do their pruning after harvest in the late summer or fall. So they're pruning their trees while they still have foliage on them. After the crop has been harvested, they're all taking size control into consideration now, where commercial apple trees or cherry trees or plum trees used to be 15 to 25 feet tall. Almost all of those trees now are in the 8 to 10 foot range, because the liability insurance companies came in and said, you got guys going up there to pick plums? Yeah, that's where the plums are. That's where we're going to get them. We're not going to renew your liability policy. We don't want people 30 feet up in a tree. Avocado growers especially went through this with, trees that were 30, 40, and even 50 feet tall. Wow. Commercial agriculture has done a complete reversal in their pruning philosophies and timing, and also in size. So where they used to plant 80 to 120 trees on an acre, now a lot of these guys are planting 260 to maybe 380 trees on an acre, and they're growing them in a hedgerow, and they're keeping those trees pruned down to a manageable size so that most of that work can be done from the ground or from a short ladder. So, I don't think it's as important to consider the time of year when you're pruning. I think it's more important to consider what you're pruning for. What are my goals? Okay. How do I want this tree to be maintained size-wise? And, as soon as your crop is done in the summer, you can easily go in and do pruning at that time so that you size control the tree down to a reasonable, manageable size. And you know what? If you want to go back in the winter and in December or January or February and do a little detail work, go for it. I have trees that I prune maybe 3 times or 4 times a year, a little bit at a time. Main effort is size control. After that, it's just some detail work, keeping the trees in perspective. How am I growing that tree? Is it actually a tree, or is it a hedge? Is it on a trellis? Is it an espalier? Some of those things require considerably more maintenance than just a full-size tree would. So
then again, the idea of a tree and going into a dormancy and that sort of stuff isn't really a consideration ultimately.
Not anymore. Not to commercial agriculture, and certainly not to me. I'm going to prune on the day it works best for me, and I'm going to let the tree tell me when it needs to be pruned.
Or even prune here and there sometimes too, right? Maybe you're standing on this side of the yard over here and looking at the tree in a way you haven't looked at it quite in a while, and you're like, maybe I need to do this over here. So maybe that day you're taking a little chunk over here because that's what you want to do to make it. You know what I mean? It just doesn't really necessarily matter ultimately. It's not going to affect the tree itself.
No, yesterday,
other than shape,
my Pomona sweet lemon, which is on an 8x8 trellis. So it's 8 feet wide and 8 feet tall and about 18 inches wide. And it was starting to get lanky and leggy and out of bounds. And so I just took my clippers and made a few 15 or 20 cuts here and there on long, lanky branches, and had the whole thing done in 3 minutes and walked away from it. So, and I can go back in another 3 months and do the same thing again, just to keep it in balance and growing within perspective to the space that I've dedicated to it.
Okay.
One other thing, if I can add to the summer pruning, as we saw in Enoch's garden, there's a lot of fruit trees that are now fruiting. You wouldn't necessarily prune now unless that branch is, again, growing in the wrong direction or there's something aesthetic that needs to be accomplished. But in regards to pruning, once you harvest the fruit, it is an excellent time to now get the branches back to where you want it. One of the primary goals with the summer pruning concept is you're basically getting all of that overgrowth that happened between spring and early summer back into check, and the growth where you want it to be. And if you're basically maximizing on growth within, again, hopefully reach, because a lot of that growth by come spring next year is going to be the flowers and fruit again. So what summer pruning will achieve is help keep your trees to size and hopefully get the spring flowers and ultimately the fruit within reach. So that's also what you're trying to accomplish as soon as you're done with your fruit harvest for the year.
That's exactly right. Yes. So
Okay.
there really is no for a backyard grower, there is no exact timing. It's the day that it works for you and the day you think the tree needs to be pruned. And prune around your crop. I'm not going to go in and start making a bunch of pruning cuts on my red Baron peach, which has a beautiful set of fruit on it. I don't want to start cutting fruit out. But then again, if I need to do some thinning, if I have too many fruit on that tree, I can make a few selective pruning cuts and do some thinning at the same time. Instead of hand plucking 1 or 2 fruit at a time, now I can make one cut and maybe take out 15 or 20 fruit where I knew I had too many to begin with. So, you can use pruning cuts as thinning as well.
Okay, excellent. We got some couple of questions that came in here from Kelpie Capers Farm, similar, and I think maybe we can answer them both here together. Let's see. If I have an established orchard with pretty old trees, how do I go about getting those in optimal shape? These trees are pretty old, and I have 14 apple, 2 pear, and 2 cherry. And as well, she asked, kind of in the same lines, are you able to prune a 20, 30 foot tall tree down to 10 or 12 feet?
So let's address that first. You absolutely are able to do that, but here's what you want to consider. Is the tree already grown way out of balance to what you originally intended it to be? So you have a 20 to 30 foot tree that you want ultimately to be 10 feet tall or 12 feet tall. So I'm not going to prune the tree back to 10 or 12 feet tall. I'm going to prune it to 4 or 5 feet tall, and I'm going to regrow that lower structure to a balance within that 10 or 12 foot range. So you want to you're getting medieval with that tree. You're getting dramatic and drastic with it, and you're going to lose a season's worth of growth, maybe even 2 seasons worth of growth, depending on what kind of tree it is. If it's an avocado, I'll probably lose 2 seasons. If it's an apple or a pear or a cherry that produce on spur wood, I'm probably going to have to reestablish all that spur wood. So I may very well lose 2 seasons. But what I'm going to gain is I'm going to gain manageability. Yeah. So if I have 14 apple trees and I want to get those back in perspective, I'm going to go in the first year and maybe prune 1/3 of those or maybe half of those and still be able to harvest off the others and then come back and take the others in the second year.
Yes.
So that I'm not losing all of my crop, but I'm gaining manageability over maybe a 2 or 3 year period.
That's a great idea. And and again, too, you're, like you said, you're getting medieval. You're just walking up to that thing going 3, 4 feet right about here and whack, right?
That's right. You're going to regrow that whole structure.
Regrow from that point. Yeah.
And, the California avocado industry is the perfect example of this because, like I said earlier, about 20 some years ago, the liability insurance companies came in and just said, nope, we're not doing it. We're not going to insure you. These trees are way too big. And they were on 20 or 25 foot centers and they were giant trees. 30, 40, 50 foot was not unusual. So the avocado growers came in and they took those trees, and a lot of them did this just exactly that way. Every other tree down to 4 feet tall. They took a whitewash product like IV Organics that Charles promotes, which is, why not? It's an OMRI registered product. It's organic and it does a great job. So then the structure that was left, they whitewashed over that entire structure. right over the cuts, right over the trunk, all the way down to the ground. And then they grew that structure back out. So you had 6 or 8 or 10 feet of growth in the first year. Then they took that growth in half. And then now they've reestablished a low canopy fruiting tree. And what they did was went into the other part of the grove and took the other half down, or every other tree down, in the second or third year after that first initial pruning. So over a period of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, they brought the whole grove back down to a manageable size. And now they accept the responsibility of keeping those trees managed at a size that works for them. So, this has been done tens of thousands of times every year in commercial agriculture. It's not anything new. It's not anything that, hasn't been done, scientifically tested over the last, 50 years or more. So you have to have manageability. Otherwise, you're going to lose a lot of that crop. How are you going to throw a bird net over a 20-foot cherry tree?
Right.
If I have an 8-foot cherry tree, I can take a 25 by 25 bird net, take a little piece of PVC pipe, put it over that tree, bring it back down around the trunk, wrap it around the trunk, put a bungee cord around it, and walk away from it. When the fruit's ripe, undo the bungee cord, throw the net off, harvest my fruit, and move it on to another tree that needs that bird protection. You don't want to have that net on for an extended period of time. As soon as you see the first bird damage, you put the net on, and as soon as you harvest your fruit, you take the net off. So, it's just a matter of being able to manage those trees easily yourself or with one other person by standing on the ground or with a short ladder. So, manageability, like I said, is in my opinion one of the most important concepts to backyard orchard culture success.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people that have shown me trees. Hey, this tree's too big. The tree failed me. The nurseryman told me it was a semi-dwarf plum. So my opinion of a semi-dwarf tree was it was only going to be 8 feet tall, and now it's 20 feet tall. Well, the nurseryman didn't lie to you. That's a semi-dwarf plum. It's just dwarf in perspective to the standard, which could grow probably 30 feet.
Right.
So the tree didn't fail you. You failed the tree by not keeping it manageable to a size that works for you.
Exactly, because ultimately we're the ones who decide how big our trees are going to be.
We have to accept that responsibility and keep them managed to a size that's manageable for us. And what my first comment on that was, if you're willing to accept the responsibility to grow a 15 or 20 foot tree and manage that tree, have at it. Have fun. Get up on that ladder, get out that pole pruner, do whatever you want to do to manage that tree, but it's not going to be in my landscape. I want to keep something, size controlled and managed where I can get to it and work it easy. Especially varieties like that ripen over a 2 or 3 week period of time. It makes no sense to have a 20 or 30 foot tree.
Yeah.
So an example I can add to that in regards to pruning is on Ivory Organics, there's a 10-in-1 fig tree. And this is specific to the Kelpie Capers farm, where she's, again, got those 20 to 30 feet tall trees that she wants to get down to 10. I'm envisioning if the tree trunk is 10 feet tall with branches starting at 12 feet, she may need to come down even lower than 10 feet. And what I did with my fig tree that I had on my property that was 20 plus feet tall. Again, this is under, I remember the title of it was OMG, Why Cut the Giving Fig Tree? It was my grandpa Saman variety fig, one of our family favorites for like 30 years. And I basically wanted to bring in these other flavors. There's tiger striped figs, and there's berry flavored figs, and there's the black figs and the brown figs, and there's literally thousands of varieties of figs. And I'm like, in the footprint of one big tree, I wanted to enjoy the flavors of 10 flavors of trees. And so what I did was I took this 20-foot tall tree down to about 6 inches. And from the 6 inches, it created 5 branches. And from those 5 branches, it split into 2 more. And that supports the 10 flavors of figs that naturally, because the branching and the structure is so compact and low, with minimal pruning, I can easily keep it at about 7 to 8 feet year round. It doesn't shoot the way it once did because most of the wood mass is low, and it gives me like significant control over the tree compared to all these other varieties. And something else to be mindful of. So that answers, I know there's a grafting question as to why graft. Grafting gives you the value of having a lot of flavors. So instead of planting 10 fig trees, which would take more than all the real estate I have in my backyard, I'm able to, in the footprint of one fig tree, enjoy all the flavors of figs in just one spot. So that's the value of grafting. And the other thing to be mindful of for a Kelpie Capers farm is the age of your fruit trees. Different fruit varieties have a certain lifespan. So if you were to cut it, as I did in my fig tree, which was only a few years old and it was over 20 feet tall, if you're cutting, you're saying some of these trees are mature. A quick search shows some pear trees only have a life as little as 15 years to up to 75. Apples could be 50 to 100. Some cherries as little as 15, some as long as 250, with the average of about 20 to 25 years. So be mindful of the fact you might cut this tree and then next year it dies, or 5 years later it dies. Every living thing has a life, and be mindful of the fact that, you know, you're pruning your trees, you're learning how to manage your trees. When and if it does die, it's actually more when, because it will. This also creates opportunity to now plant new, younger varieties, other varieties. Someone asked way up their favorite variety fruit tree. My family favorite of the like dozens of different fruits that we're growing in the backyard. One of our favorite is something called the Sweet Treat Pluery. And this is, again, another Dave Wilson variety fruit tree in collaboration with the Zager Orchard Farm. And maybe Tom can explain a little bit about hybrid fruit trees. Again, I mentioned Sweet Treat Pluery. Most of the audience should be familiar with something called a pluot, which is a hybrid plum and apricot, hence the name pluot. And maybe Tom can explain a little bit about what these hybrid fruit trees are that are really cutting edge, most delicious fruits I've ever tasted. And it was so exciting to bring some of those Zager variety trees, and I've got 4 of them in my backyard. The other one that's like really popular is something called the Spice Z Nectaplum. Beautiful, full of foliage, and obviously delicious fruit. But I'll have Tom explain a little bit more about hybrid fruit trees and how that can be an added asset to the backyard grower.
Yeah, right. Because we're really looking for, you know, the types of trees that are delicious, right? We want flavor. We want all that sort of stuff. So
the stuff you can't buy at the store. You got stuff that's way better than you're going to ever find at any even Whole Foods market, for example. Not that that's the standard.
So, you know, number one on your fig tree, you've done exactly what we talked about. You've accepted the responsibility for size control, and you've conquered it. You've brought that tree down to a size that's manageable, and you're going to continually do that as time goes on. So good for you. You know, you accepted the challenge, and now you've got it beat. As far as the comment on, you know, I say grow what you like and what you'll use. And I also say grow what you can't buy in the market in good quality on a regular basis. You know, I can go to Trader Joe's 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year, maybe 360. And I can buy almonds, I can buy walnuts, I can buy pistachios, I can buy pecans, I can buy all of those nut varieties. And they're every bit as good as what I can grow in my landscape, but I don't have to grow the tree. I don't have to process the nut. So I have 0 nut trees in my landscape right now because I can go and buy them every day of the year, buy what I need, 2 weeks later, go back and buy a little bit more. But I can't buy a good Sweet Treat Pluery. I can't buy a good Spice Z Nectaplum. I can't buy a good Red Baron Peach. You know, I'm very particular about the fruit that I eat. I like it to be full flavored and freshly harvested. I don't like fruit that's been cold stored for, you know, weeks or even months on some things. So, you know, growing what you can't buy in good quality is what you want to take into consideration. Use your valuable landscape space to grow something that you can't buy in that same quality. So one of the reasons that I went to work for Dave Wilson Nursery almost 24 years ago was because of the research that I had done on a company called Zager Genetics. And Zager Genetics is a company in Modesto, California. And don't let the word genetics confuse you. I have people all the time say, I'm not planting any of that genetically modified stuff. Well, Zager Genetics doesn't do anything that's genetically modified. There's nothing in any of those crosses that wouldn't be there had those two varieties met somewhere in nature and had a chance to cross pollinate. All they do is flower to flower pollinizations. They grow on the progeny. They evaluate that fruit for the characteristics that they've bred for, and they market it. And a lot of those, it's not that they're just an F1 hybrid. It's not just plum by apricot. It might be plum by apricot by plum by apricot by plum. It might be an F6 or an F7 or an F8 hybrid that's been hybridized over a 30 or 40 year period. Some of the varieties that they're introducing have been hybridized and rehybridized again for decades. And all they are is simple flower to flower crosses. And they just breed in the characteristics they want. Hey, you know what? This one ripened up early. This one has a low kill characteristic. This one has a big size fruit. You know, this one has a really small seed. So they keep breeding these different characteristics. And a lot of those are commercial attributes. A lot of those are things that a commercial grower is going to be looking for. How does it cold store? How big is the fruit? What's the exterior color like? So they're growing a lot of varieties for commercial agriculture. And what I do is I go in after they've evaluated the commercial varieties. I go in 2 weeks later and I look for flavor. I'm only concerned with flavor. I'm not concerned with what is going to ship back to the East Coast or what has, you know, what's the size of a softball. It doesn't really matter to me. If it tastes good, I want it. So I'm looking at Zagers for flavor, and the hybrids that they've done over the years include, you know, plum apricot hybrids where the plum is the maternal parent, apricot plum hybrids called apriums where the apricot is the maternal parent. Charles mentioned Spice Z Nectaplum, which is a nectarine plum hybrid. There's cherry plum hybrids like Sweet Treat Plueri. So they've been working with these varieties now for over 60 years. And, you know, Floyd Zager was an absolute genius. You know, he was one of those people that I would go out of my way 2 hours to spend 15 minutes with Floyd Zager. He was just a wonderful man, a very generous man. And he had this passion for hybridizing fruit like nobody that I've ever seen before. You know, Floyd Zager learned hybridization from, you know, it came way back from Luther Burbank. Floyd Zager was a man named Fred Anderson, who was a protege of Luther Burbank. And then Floyd Zager got to work with Fred Anderson and learn what Luther Burbank had done. So you're looking at 140 years worth of knowledge that's gone into this hybridization program to create some of the most delicious fruits in the world. You won't find anything like them anywhere. And fortunately for me, Zagers has allowed Dave Wilson Nursery to introduce a lot of those varieties that are strictly high flavored varieties to the home gardener, backyard gardener. So you can buy blue apriums and cherry plums and things like that today. And I couldn't be happier. I'm so proud to be, you know, involved in that process and getting those trees to public gardeners.
Exactly. And when you think about, again, too, talking all the way back to that story you were talking about earlier about picking the wrong type of tree and all the years it takes to kind of figure out you don't like something and all of that. And then you look at that story there of these guys who've spent all of these years, year after year after year, just working these different varieties and coming up with some of the best after all of these years. They've done so much just hard, diligent work that we don't have to as backyard gardeners and orchardists and all of that to have some of these just really wonderful flavored varieties. And you all can get those varieties again at Dave Wilson Nurseries. I've put links right down below in the description for everybody here. And again, this is just such a great conversation. We'll have to come back again soon to have some more discussion because I've still got so many questions I have. There's a lot more to talk about when it comes to this sort of stuff.
Well,
one.
I can do this all day. You know, I love to talk about fruit and fruit trees, and you know, Charles knows that we've met many times and done many projects together, and I'm
Yeah.
uh, I'm willing to come on and banter about fruit trees as often as you want.
Absolutely. We'll definitely work for another visit real soon so that we can, because again, like I said, and it's one thing I love about this show anymore is that, I'll do all this prep and I'll think of all these great questions, and then I'll get a great guest like yourself, Tom, who sets me up with such good things and topics and stuff like that, that sets the conversation up. But then we got a great audience that just jumps in and brings in all these great questions too and everything as well. So I don't even get to most of the things I want to talk about. So we
Well,
got to
you
have
know
a
what?
great conversation where you can do that and get to some of those. So again, I'll look for some time for us here a little bit later in the season to get back together again and continue this conversation on backyard orchard culture, fruit tree care, all of that sort of stuff. But what I want to do real quick is give you each just a minute, just like the introduction. Let's just kind of have a little introduction here and give you each a minute here to, say a little something to the audience before we head out. Charles, let's go ahead and start with you real quick.
I'm going to go first again. So again, it's a pleasure meeting you all. I'm seeing, again, tons of questions. We've answered as much as we can. A lot of grafting questions and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
You can find a lot of these things, obviously, just going on YouTube. I've demonstrated several methods of grafting. One of my personal favorites is something called approach grafting, where if you've got the flavor that you're looking to graft, you can graft it alongside while they're both on their own roots until that healing process takes place over the course of about a month or two. And if it still hasn't healed, you can wait another month and while that union, strengthens, and it's a lot of fun. Simply just search for the Ivy Organic plus grafting, or Ivy Organic plus citrus, or Ivy Organic plus avocados. We've got over 500 videos, I think, more than 400 for sure. And we've been doing this for over 10 years, and whatever the audience wants, I do. And it's been a pleasure, bringing that content to you all. Don't forget about the promo code, which you'll find below, and I'll just throw this up one more time. This here is Enix, or the Let's Get Growing discount code, the Grow 10. You get 10% off the entire store, which includes some of the Dave Wilson Nursery plants that we still have remaining from our winter purchase. So every year, predominantly in the winter months, Dave Wilson Nursery makes available their inventory to nurseries across the country. We always get our hands on, a handful of what our customers are looking for. And you'll still find some olives and some pomegranates and some berries and blueberries and so forth. If you're interested in any of those with the Ivory Organic brand products, and take 10% off the whole thing. And it does help support the Let's Get Growing channel as well. So it's been awesome being a partner with you for so many years, and looking forward to continuously growing with all of you viewers as well. And wishing you all happy gardening.
Excellent. Yeah. And again, too, links right down below in the description. Ivy Organics, use promo code GROW10, get 10% off, and definitely get on some of that fertilizer, as Charles mentioned a little bit earlier. This is a great time of year to get on top of that as well, too. All right. And again, thanks, Tom, for coming in again, too. You just such a wealth of knowledge about all of this sort of stuff. And again, too, you can just tell that you really enjoy and love talking about this stuff, too. So again, like I said, we'll work on getting you back here real soon.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks, Nick, for the opportunity. I am very passionate about fruit, and I've been growing fruit. My family, my mother and father, my grandmother, we're all fruit growers for their entire lives, and so it kind of came to me through family, and I've been doing it for well over 50 years, and I'll keep doing it until the day they close the lid. So
yeah, there you go.
And I've always considered myself to be luckier than smart. I've been able to work with some giants in horticulture in my career, some absolute geniuses, and I've learned so much over the years, and I'm just very passionate about trying to pass on as much common sense, practical knowledge as I can on backyard gardening. I don't like to overcomplicate it. I want people to be able to pick it up and keep it simple. And, if you lose a tree, don't get discouraged. If you lost a tree, it's an opportunity to do something else going forward. And you can do it different the next time, or maybe make sure that you've got the right rootstock the next time around. So there's always opportunity. Always look at it as opportunity. Have fun with it. The only way that you really get to know what's going on in your landscape, and I've said that, I say this in every one of my lectures: spend time with your trees. Don't worry about what your neighbor says, or don't worry about what Uncle Fred says. Make your landscape what you want it to be. I'm in my landscape every single day, and I observe what's going on. Oh, this tree's coming into bloom. Oh, this fruit's just about ripe now. What's going on in the landscape. And the only way you understand that is to get out there and get with it and observe it yourself and work on it yourself and make it happen for you. But my landscape for me over the years is what keeps me sane. I spend a lot of time on the Southern California freeway systems, and it's not uncommon for me to get home in the afternoon, and it's a hot summer day, and just took me an hour and a half to drive 30 miles, and I can feel the little vein in my forehead throbbing. And I put on my big hat and grab my pruning shears and walk out into my landscape, and maybe eat a couple of fresh apricots and pick some greens out of the garden for a salad, and maybe make a few cuts on a lemon tree where there's a dead branch here or there. What I realized after about 10 minutes, the blood pressure's gone down. That little vein's not throbbing anymore. I'm looking at the hummingbirds. I'm watching my dogs run around and chase squirrels. My granddaughters are eating fresh blueberries. I love what I've created, the environment that I've created for myself and my family to live in and eat from and enjoy the beauty of. So everybody has the opportunity to make their land exactly what they want it to be. Don't be discouraged by what other people tell you. Make it exactly what you want to be and enjoy it. Spend time with your trees.
Exactly. This is your growing experience. So enjoy it the way you want to enjoy it. So exactly. I love it. Tom, thank you so much for just a great, awesome conversation. And Charles, again, great. Always good to have you here on the show. And thanks for all of your support of everything we do here. And if you guys just give me a couple of minutes here, I'm just going to close out this show, and I'll be right back with you here and everybody else as well in just one moment. Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with IV Organics, where we grow cool plants, and author, Saving the World with the Home Garden. IV Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
All right. Oh, again, too, I got to keep putting those back right. Everything got reset when we had that little glitch earlier. I got to fix everything up for next time. But all right. What another great conversation there today with our guests, talking all about backyard orchard culture, fruit tree care. We got to learn so much, but there's still so much more too. So we're going to have them back, like I said, again, real soon to continue this conversation so we can learn some more about all of the different fruit trees and things, especially for me. Like I said, I gave you all that little bit of tour of showing you all the different trees I have, and now I got some information, and I'm going to get out and try to do some things and make some changes with my fruit trees so that I can get the best production out of them as I possibly can. And again, thank you to our guests for being here with us today. get down in the links below in the description and go and check them out. Go check out Tom's YouTube channel. He's got some videos there too. He's put out a couple of recent videos on some things that we kind of touched on a little bit. One called One Tree, Four Flavors. You got to check out this video. It's really great. And another one too, similar, but it's 4 trees, 1 hole. We kind of touched on that just a little bit as well too. But go check out those videos. Really great videos he's got over there. Go check those out. And like I said before earlier too, it's always great when you guys go and show some support to our guests. So definitely, like I said, go check out those videos. Go drop in a comment. Let them know you saw them here on the Let's Get Growing show. Again, like I said, I always appreciate it when you guys do that. And again, too, we got some great shows coming up here on the Let's Get Growing show. This next Saturday, we are going to have back with us, joining us, Dr. Jeff Pierce. Dr. Jeff is going to be joining with us again. I met him at the National Heirloom Exposition this last year, and he did a great talk on gardening as medicine. We had a great discussion with him on the show this last fall. We're going to have him back on this next Saturday, and we'll have another cool announcement to make as well, too, during our next Saturday show, too. So you'll want to tune in and check that show out as well, too. As I mentioned, we just had Gardner Scott on our last Sunday edition for his Q&A, but the week before for his book. He had his book out, The Guide to Raised Bed Gardening. We had a great discussion and talked all about that on our Sunday edition monthly gardening book club. And we announced our new book, and our new book for this month of May is Epic Tomatoes. We've got Greg LaHoyer joining with us, author of Epic Tomatoes. We're going to be talking all about this really great, amazing book. I've been just loving this book so far. And as Mark and I mentioned at the end of the last book club show too, this is a book we've both like seen on the bookshelf for many years and have been wanting to grab it. And we finally have a reason now to have it and to get it and read through it. I hope you all have a copy or get a copy of Epic Tomatoes and join with us on the 3rd Sunday of May for our monthly gardening book club discussion with Craig LaHoyer. So that's going to be really fun. Lots and lots of great things coming up here on the Let's Get Growing show. And before we head out here, everybody, definitely, click that like button, hit the thumbs up if you haven't already. Also, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Hit the bell notification to be notified of all of our upcoming videos and live streams. And of course, like I said, don't keep this show a secret. Share it with all of your friends out there. Let them know about all the great conversations we're having here each and every Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Urban Gardener channel. And again, too, thank you all so much for being here. Follow all the links down below to our guests. And again, too, I look forward to seeing all of you on next Saturday's show with Dr. Jeff. We'll see all of you then.